Hi there, it's Matthew.
Yo, it's Aaron again. Today we're going to be talking about a style called the Belgian Witbier. Now you might be familiar with another kind of wheat beer from Germany, a German Hefeweizen. This one's going to be a little bit different. Whereas Hefeweizens are only able to be brewed according to the Behindsgebot, which is just water, yeast, barley, and hops, Belgian Witbiers aren't bound by that law. So oftentimes they have coriander and orange peel. Coriander is the big one. Almost every Belgian wit beer is going to be pretty heavily dosed with some coriander. Also, because it's a wit beer, it needs to have at least 25% pale wheat. Malted wheat as the flavor grain. What type of wit beer do we have today, Matthew?
Well, today we're going to be doing Witbier. Witbier harkens back to the old style of Belgian wit beers, which is over a 400-year-old style of beer. Now, this style was very, very popular for centuries. However, it almost became extinct in the 1950s until a brewer from Hoegaarden, another Belgian beer producer named Pierre Celis, actually kind of revitalized the style in general. Now, Witbier is actually named after a Flemish soap opera that ran from 1993 to 2008. The name translates as White Church, and there's lots and lots of cities in Belgium that are have the suffix "kerkie," which means church. So let's go ahead and pop this one open, and we'll talk about it.
Okay. Don't need a bottle opener for this one. This beer is offered on draft, can, and it's also in bottles. So you can get it a multitude of ways.
Now, some of the advantages of a can is the fact that the solid lining of the aluminum actually prevents any light from getting to the beer. And as we know, light and, in combination, oxygen are the two worst things that you can have happen to a beer. So this can actually helps to support the integrity of the beer much longer than a bottle would.
Wow, now, even if you know nothing about this beer or the style of beer, immediately when you pour it and look at the color, it looks like a great daytime drinking beer.
Yeah, it's got really nice, pale straw, hints of just a touch of orange. But the one thing that really stands out about the appearance of this beer is the fact that it's so cloudy. And what that is, or what's causing that, is all the suspended yeast. Wit beers, traditionally speaking, are unfiltered beers, very yeast forward and wheat forward. And all that cloudiness is just suspended yeast that's been left into the beer by the brewers.
Yeah, it looks really cool when you first pour it in. You can kind of see it. It almost looks like a tie-dye swirl without the colors, but a swirl within the beer where you can really see the yeast start to cloud it up. You could also, as soon as you open it, you can smell the aroma of the beer too. So speaking of smell, let's give it a whirl. Wow, yeasty.
Yeah, lots of yeasty phenols in this. Certainly you get the coriander and some of that orange peel that the beer is brewed with as well.
Can you tell me exactly what phenols are? You said that you smell some phenols.
Phenols are volatiles that are created in the chemistry of the beer as the yeast is eating and consuming the sugars. It's producing alcohol and CO2, and these compounds are forming. They're called phenols, which are basically just volatile compounds that usually come through more in the aroma of the beer. In this one we get a little bit of clove, some white pepper. What else is coming through there?
I don't know if you said it before, but some bright lemon zest. I wouldn't say it's lemony, but you definitely get some of that lemon zest. Like if you squeeze the peel of a lemon, you get some of that oil zest on there. Really bright. What I smell more than anything is to me is yeast. Sure. Now, does that come from the actual yeast that they use, or does that come from the malt, maybe, or a combination?
Belgian wit beers, traditionally speaking, are brewed with a very specific type of yeast, which differs from the Hefeweizen yeast they use in Germany. Hefeweizen yeast tend to have more of a banana and a bubblegum type of characteristic, where this focuses a little bit more on white pepper and clove.
Okay, well, it's a good-looking beer, a good-smelling beer. Let's see if it's a good tasting beer. Cheers. Cheers. Yeah, it's got some flavor, it's got some good depth to it, but one of the things that's really striking about it, with that being said, is the lightness and brightness on the tongue. Yeah. That's probably accentuated by the high carbonation level, I would guess, but it really almost dances, the flavors almost dance on your tongue.
Yeah,
especially at the front end.
It's very light-bodied and refreshing, but there is definitely some depth and character to the flavor. Not only do you have these soft citrus notes that are coming from the malted wheat, and in combination with all those yeasty phenols that come through in the flavor as well, we still get some of that clove and some of that nice white ground pepper. But there is an underlying, a nice subtle balancing bitterness to it as well that comes from European hops. Some of your more traditional European hop styles tend to have that kind of earthy quality, whereas the citrus in this is coming more from the malted wheat as opposed to the and most American style beers that really rely on very citric forward hops. This one has a very much more mild, subtle, but very well incorporated hop presence to it.
Yeah, and I know we talked about it being a daytime drinking beer. I don't know if we mentioned the ABV, but it's 5%. Clocks in right at 5% ABV. So it's a beer that's on the lighter side, but still offers a pretty good flavor.
Absolutely, which makes it a great selling point at the brass tap. Now, most brass taps will carry Witbier, or if not, something very, very similar to it in terms of style. They're always great if you have a guest that's sitting on the patio, or maybe somebody that's in during the afternoon or on a weekday, perhaps watching a ball game, or if you happen to be located in one of the southern states like we are in Florida, where it's hot all the time.
All the time.
It makes for a great beer to recommend to your guests to kind of beat the heat.
What are some other beers that maybe follow in this style? Like off the top of my head, I know Bell's Oberon is a big one. That's the same style, right?
It's a similar style.
Mm-hmm.
It's an American wheat, which has a lot of things,
wheat, yeah.
a lot of things in common with it. Certainly, Hoegaarden is kind of one of the classic representations of it. As you mentioned, Bell's Oberon is a very nice one. There is a couple that are produced by Sam Adams, which has really great distribution, a lot of name recognition. There's many beers that are produced in the style. Avery White Rascal is another excellent beer. If you happen to be in the distribution footprint of Cigar City, their Florida Cracker White is an American brewed, but traditionally brewed in the Belgian style. It's also a wit beer, and that's an excellent representation as well.
Yeah, so it's a pretty popular style. I know Matthew said it almost became extinct once upon a time, but that's true with a lot of styles of beer that we're going to go through, as you're going to see. But I'm glad this one came back. It's getting more and more popular. It's got a nice malt, yeast forward characteristic. Pretty light on the hops. Any hop flavor you're getting is just a touch of bitterness, but it's not even enough to be really even considered a large hop presence.
Sure, and these styles of beer in general, be it a Belgian wheat beer or, as we mentioned earlier, an American wheat beer, but wheat beers in general are very accessible to a palate, to somebody's palate, no matter whether they're very advanced or if they're just getting into craft beers and kind of branching out of the more traditional American adjunct lagers. They've got a little bit of fruitiness, a little bit of sweetness, but nothing over the top and certainly nothing off-putting. So
yes.
They make just great beers to recommend to almost any guests.
And even though, just to avoid some confusion, even though it's made with wheat and it's a type of wheat beer, the actual name is wit, W-I-T, Witbier, W-I-T-B-I-E-R. Just so you don't get confused between a wheat beer, an American wheat beer, a German wheat beer. They're all close, but this guy gets to use a bunch of coriander, a bunch of orange peel.
That's right.
Good things.
Well, cheers, buddy.
Cheers.